All right, welcome everybody to week 3 of the college football season. My name's Ty. I'm going to be bringing you my picks for this third week of the college football season. We got some interesting matchups this week, to say the least. Some are great, some are not so great, but let's hope we have more success than we had last weekend with our picks. Before we kick this thing off, I just want to throw it out there to everybody. I'm not sponsored by anybody to make this video. I don't have any affiliation to anybody. Nobody's paying me to say these things, okay? These are my picks and my picks alone. With that being said, all the lines that I'm going to show you on the screen are from FanDuel. I use FanDuel, so that's where I source the information. But if you use a different app, you're going to get marginally different lines. But, yeah, it'll be something close to what I got on the screen. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. And the first matchup I got this week is coming from the Friday night game. Arizona is taking on Kansas State in Kansas State. So home game for Kansas State here. We got two ranked teams on the slate. Kansas State from last week, from what I saw against Tulane, they have some defensive liabilities. I mean, they didn't look fantastic. Tulane definitely had a chance to win that game. They kind of threw it away. With that being said, though, positive for K-State, their quarterback, Avery Johnson, this kid is a dual threat. He looks really great throwing the football. I mean, the ball, the way it spins off his hand, looks amazing. And if it's not there and there's nothing open downfield, he's going to take off with his legs, and he's going to pick up that first down. So, true dual threat quarterback. Yeah, and again, in that Tulane game, it was close. The scoop and score in the fourth quarter was the difference, but they played it close all the way down to the wire. So that could have easily turned into a loss for Kansas State. Luckily, they squeaked it out. On the Arizona side of the house, I mean, the story of their season so far has been the game against New Mexico. I mean, there was no defense played. No defense on either side of the ball. Arizona didn't stop them from doing anything, and New Mexico doesn't have a defense. The Northern Arizona game, that's an FCS opponent. They let up 10 points. Northern Arizona, they only scored on a trick play. So, I mean, you can kind of, put some stock in the Arizona defense for that one. They did all right. Their quarterback, Fafita, his favorite target there, Terriota McMillan, T-Mac, they call him, number 4. Look out for him. He's got 315 receiving yards on the season. Most of it came in that game against New Mexico, but he had 4 touchdowns in that game. The running back, Connolly, he's really great. He can run in between the tackles. He can bounce it outside. He's really good. He is their second leading receiver, and I think that is kind of the problem. Connolly's got 67 yards receiving, and he's the second best receiver. T-Mac has 315. So if you're the K-State defense here, you got to be looking to shut down T-Mac and that Arizona offense. Beyond that, they don't really have anything else. I mean, they got, all their other weapons kind of have a couple touches for some garbage yards. They don't really have much production on anyone else, so they're going to need to spread the ball out if they want to have a chance to win this one. It's ultimately going to come down to Avery Johnson and the K-State offense having a big day. I mean, Tulane showed that an effective offense can move the ball in K-State, and when Arizona watches the Tulane tape, they'll find ways and opportunities to spread the ball out and their playmakers to score. But K-State's offense, man, they're just so much more balanced. They can do it all, and their defense is suspect, but Arizona doesn't have a defense. So I'm looking for a big day from Avery Johnson here. 7.5, sure, take 7.5. I think it's going to be a much larger swing than that. But if you want to play it safe, take K-State money line here, or parlay it with a couple other close favorites, and you're going to have yourself a day. Moving on, we got LSU South Carolina SEC matchup. I actually earlier I had this lower on in the list of games, but I think this game's going to be a lot better than people are giving it credit for at the moment. LSU on the road. Carolina's got they're getting 6.5 points here as a home favorite. I know they didn't play well their first game of the season against Old Dominion, and they looked rough. But let's be honest here. A win's a win. They got out of there with a win, and you could say they look like garbage, but I mean ultimately. They're 2-0 on the season. They just went to SEC opponent in Kentucky, and they didn't allow a touchdown, right? Their offense was clicking. They were scoring points. They're averaging 5 sacks a game. Their defense is doing the job. And then on the other hand, right, you get this LSU team who they started off the season with a loss at USC, or excuse me, a loss versus USC. Um, they gave up 21 to Nichols. I mean, Nichols. 21 is kind of a lot of points to a FCS school. Their offense was humming. They look very good on the offensive side of the ball. I can't remember the kid's name, their quarterback. He can spin it, right? USC, excuse me, the University of South Carolina, they're underrated at the moment. And this game is really going to show us who they are. I think the game's closer than the 6.5 points that are given to USC here. The LSU defense just hasn't been good. And if USC finds a way to exploit that, they'll be able to win this game. Something happened to the South Carolina defense in week 2, and maybe that's just Kentucky having a terrible offense, but they figured some stuff out, and I'm excited to see what happens this week against LSU. This game's going to be determined by halftime either way. Either South Carolina gives up, rolls over, and LSU's throwing the ball all around the yard and they're having a day, or this is going to be a hard-nosed game down to the wire. I mean, at halftime, if it's within one score, we're going to see this thing go in the distance, and they're going to be battling all day there in South Carolina. So I'm excited to see how this one plays out. I'm not going to touch it personally just because I think LSU definitely has the ability to lose this game. And what I saw from them on the defensive side of the ball against Nichols, I don't want to touch it. I think this game's closer than the line suggests. Moving on, we got Oklahoma State taking on Tulsa. OK State, man, they looked bad early against Arkansas. They couldn't move the ball. They couldn't stop the run. And ultimately, the story of that game was Arkansas beating themselves. I mean, they made too many mistakes. There was an interception, a fumble, muff punt, turnover on downs. You name it, Arkansas had it. They should have won that game. They couldn't close it out. And on the other side, Oklahoma State, man, they got to clean their game up. They could have easily beaten that Arkansas team. I don't see them struggling against Tulsa, but they really need to clean up their errors from last week moving forward. If they still look sloppy here in this game against Tulsa, I would look to fade them later in the season. Tulsa are not a great football team by any metric. They don't look bad by the numbers, right? They're averaging 492 yards a game, but let's be honest, it's Tulsa. They played Northwestern State. Northwestern State gave up 62 points. Your yards are going to be inflated when you're scoring 62 in a game. So, look, I think Oklahoma State wins this game, right? And the money line certainly suggests that. But for the number 13 team in the country against the unranked Arkansas last week, there are concerns. And I am concerned going forward for this team. Like I said before, I don't think they struggle with Tulsa. Maybe, Tulsa keeps it within 19.5. I'm not sure. But later in the season, if they don't right the wrongs of last week, they're going to struggle, and they're going to struggle bad. Moving on, we got Alabama at Wisconsin this week. All right, let's get into it. A lot of mistakes in the Bama University of South Florida game. If Bama cleans that up, it's not even close. They lost 2 fumbles. They didn't respect the South Florida quarterback running the ball. I mean, the entire game should have looked like the way that fourth quarter looked. The fourth quarter was so dominant for Alabama. They were scoring at will, using all of their playmakers, and the game wasn't really close. Now, granted, USF played Bama close last year as well, but after that USF game last year, Bama flipped a switch. They went on to win the SEC and make some noise. They, one-score game against the inevitable national champions, and they came close. So last year, that USF game really flipped a switch in them, and they really figured it out. Hopefully, this year will be the same. I mean, a 42-16 victory. The score is not indicative of the way that game looked the entire time, but hey, I think Alabama gets it done here. There's not much to mention on behalf of Wisconsin. They want to run the ball. It's very obvious. They want to use the run to develop the play-action pass. But let's be honest, man. Bama's not South Dakota, okay? The gaps that were there last week are not going to be there this week. You're looking at a lot of third and long, obvious passing situations. They're going to have to be okay with putting the ball in the air to beat Alabama. And I think Bama's defense is going to hold up against the Badgers' offense. I really think that Wisconsin doesn't really have what it takes to match up against Bama. And I think Bama's going to pour it on offense through the ground and in the air. They can easily cover this spread if everything goes according to their game plan. If they have errors like they had last week with the fumbles and they don't clean that stuff up, maybe it'll be close. But in order for Wisconsin to win, they have to keep the game close to stand a chance, and they have to play all 4 quarters, which USF didn't do. If none of those things happen for Wisconsin, they're not winning, and it's not going to be close. Speaking of last year's national champions, holy fucking shit, man. These guys are absolute frauds. And they proved what everybody already knew. Texas should have won by more points, right? That the first drive of the game, they have a holding call that reverses a touchdown. So that should have been 7 on the board there. Michigan gets a garbage time touchdown to score 12 points. Other than that, they would have been held to field goals, okay? I mean, look, Arkansas State aren't good. Okay, they beat a bad Tulsa team. Michigan aren't good, but Arkansas State's not going to put up a fight here. Michigan need to figure out what's going on at their quarterback situation. You keep bringing in Alex Orji. Just give him the start. Just let that guy start, see what happens, see where you're at. The season's already chalked. I mean, you're not going to beat any competitive team looking like that. I think ranked 17, they're still ranked too high. The team's not good. Like I said, they're not going to struggle against Arkansas State. There's nothing to be said on that side of the ball. They're in the big house. Those fans are going to be a little upset. Hopefully they come out swinging. Hopefully they can put up some numbers and show that they don't suck that bad. But, oh, my goodness, Jeez. Moving on, we got Tulane taking on Oklahoma. So this game's interesting. Because Tulane should have beaten K-State. The game was way closer than the score is only a 1-score game, but that game ultimately comes down to that scoop and score fumble in the fourth quarter. Tulane wasn't able to score after that, and K-State knelt the ball out and won the game. It should have been a lot closer. And Oklahoma, they win a nail-biter against Houston. I think Tulane keep this close. I mean, if they correct their mistakes from last week, protect the football, their offense we already know can move the ball. Their quarterback can spin it. He was making throws all over the yard. They looked amazing. I think they keep this within a 2-score game. If they watch the film from that Houston game and they do what Houston did to keep that close, I think they keep it a close game. And I certainly like, giving Tulane 13.5 points here. I'd take that every day of the week. The Oklahoma defense is good, but there were a lot of mistakes last week. I think they probably win this game by about 10. And, Tulane, hey, that plus 13.5 is good enough for me. I like it, and, book it. Moving on, this matchup. Okay, this matchup's kind of fucking interesting because we need to know one thing, and is Boston College good or is Florida State bad? I mean, that's really what it's going to come down to. I mean, Boston College beats Florida State in kind of a surprise. I mean, nobody kind of expected them to go in there and win in the fashion that they did. Duquesne here, they put up 56. Duquesne didn't score. Okay, it is what it is. I want to point out to Missouri, they're pitching a shutout in the year. No points allowed. But how does their defense hold up against Castellanos and that Boston College offense? Boston College, they look good, man. Castellanos, he can throw the ball around the field. They got playmakers, that they can spread the ball out to, and if it's not there, Castellanos is taken off with his feet. So I don't know. Bill O'Brien certainly turning this program around. This is going to be a huge game for him. If there's any coach to do it, I trust Bill O'Brien to get the job done here. Mizzou defense, they're head and shoulders above everyone else in the FBS so far, right? And, not allowing any points is going to get you there. But you played Murray State and Buffalo. So I think it really comes down to let's see how Boston College stacks up against their defense. I think, they'll find ways to move the ball. I like Boston College plus the points here. I think they're going to be able to find the end zone. I think Mizzou's going to have to play their first real opponent of the year. And this game's going to be I don't know if it's close, but it's definitely within 2 scores, and I think that 16.5 is a fair line to take. Moving on to, I think, one of the best teams in the country in Miami. They look really great. They looked really good against Florida. I mean, maybe that's just Florida looking bad. I'm gonna be honest with you here. There's not much to talk about on the side of Ball State. They played Missouri State in their only game of the season. They gave up 3 sacks. I think, Miami's averaging 4 sacks a game. I think you're gonna see them really get after the quarterback. Ball State. Why did I say Murray State? Ball State's going to be in a lot of third and longs, a lot of obvious passing situations, and it's going to be a rough day for them. This is not an easy opponent, and they kind of know what they're getting themselves into. This is an absolute blowout. I don't know if 36.5 is enough in favor of Ball State. I think Miami probably cover that. I would have to imagine. If they don't, I'd be a little interested, going forward if they don't cover. But good teams win, great teams cover. So yeah, I guess. On the Ball State side, they gave up 34 to Missouri State. So if that's any indication of how this game's going to go, look for the backups to be in by halftime. Be wary of garbage time points that kind of mess with the spread. But yeah, there's not much to be said here. Oh, here we go. Rivalry game that takes place not in rivalry week. What are we doing? Somebody who's scheduling these games? Come on, man. They call this game the Civil War. Why? I don't know. There's probably some Oregon lore there, but look, Oregon don't look good. Both their wins look pretty bad. I mean, against Idaho, everybody was kind of ripping them for that performance. They still got the win. Dylan Gabriel looked great. The offense looked great, but you'd expect more points than 24 off of that performance. And letting up 14 against Idaho is kind of strange, but. Then, in their next game, they get Boise State coming in, and they barely squeak out a win in that game, and maybe it's just Ashton Gentry torching them, but they I don't know. Their defense looks suspect. Let's not fail to mention here in that Boise State game that Oregon kick returner definitely dropped the ball before the end zone, and that should not have been counted as a touchdown. They said that they reviewed it, but that review was way too quick. I don't know. Watching it live, I even said that he dropped it before the end zone, and then looking at it after the fact, yeah, he definitely dropped that ball short. But I digress. They counted it, and it is what it is. You move on. But that game was way too close for comfort against a Boise State team who is looking pretty good so far. I mean, this game is going to be closer than it looks. I definitely see value in the Oregon State 16.5. Look, maybe just getting rid of DJU was good for them. Maybe they'll be somebody this year. This game is not going to be decided until the fourth quarter. Just like the last 2 weeks for Oregon, this game is going to come down to the wire, and I think Oregon, ranked at 9th in the country, is way too high. I think they're not that good, and once they have to face tougher opponents, they will crumble. Against, Oregon State, maybe they still squeak out a win here, and against worse opponents, they'll find ways to get the W's, but it's going to come down to the fact that this team's just not all around good. They're not built for the college football playoff. I would not expect them to see them in the 12-team playoff this year. So I'm taking Oregon State in the points here. Just my opinion. Take that as you will. Oh, and we get to the biggest frauds of the fucking weekend. I mean, wow. These guys are certainly not the 5th best team in the country. I think 18th ranked is still too high. That is a just absolute embarrassment. Little stat for you. Northern Illinois was 0-14 all-time against top 10 opponents. Not anymore. They get a win against number 5 ranked Notre Dame. Notre Dame was at home. They didn't just look bad. They looked very bad. I'd be surprised if the spread in this game actually ends at 9.5 points or 10 points. Their offense does not look good, right? They put up 23 against Texas A&M, a bad Texas A&M team, mind you, They've been relying on their defense to win these games, and they held Texas A&M under 20, which it's good for you, but you'd think you'd be able to do the same thing against Northern Illinois, and you did. Unfortunately, your offense just didn't show up. So I think the spread last week in favor of Notre Dame was like 36.5 points or something like that before the game started, and to see the way that game ended, geez, man. I don't think Notre Dame lose this game, but after last week, I'm not putting my money anywhere near them at all. I'm kind of rooting for Purdue to win this game, to be honest with you. I'm not going to put any money on it. I'm not touching it, but holy fuck, Notre Dame looks bad. On to Utah and Utah State. The biggest question here, does Cam Rising play? I don't think the Utes need Cam Rising to win this game. I don't think Cam Rising being out changes anything about the way this game's going to be played. I think Utah State are bad. I think they don't have an offense. And maybe that's just playing against, USC and that all-star defense, not scoring any points. But ultimately, I think Utah does the same thing. Utah has a great defense. Utah can move the ball on offense. I would be worried, though, if Cam Rising does have a serious injury. You got to be looking toward the rest of the season and wondering where this Utah team is going to go. But I don't think it affects this game. I think Utah win. I think Utah covered the 20.5. Even without them, they're going to do an okay job. Moving on to Ole Miss playing Wake Forest. Look, this is not going to be close. This is not going to be close. Jackson Dart. Okay, this kid, Heisman candidate already. He went 24 for 24 to start today against Middle Tennessee. This kid can ball. He can throw it. He can run it. They're poised to make some noise this season. The only team with a higher third down conversion percentage is Arkansas, and Arkansas shoots himself in the foot. So I'm just giving them the title of the best third down conversion rate in the country. This game is currently sitting at, 22.5. Dude, take that shit and run. This Ole Miss team is going to score points in bunches. You look at Furman, 76-0. Middle Tennessee, 52-0. Sure, Wake Forest is a marginal step up in competition, but look, they just lost to Virginia, 31-30, and Virginia's fucking bad. So, they score points in bunches here. 22.5 is nothing for this Ole Miss offense. High caliber offense. I'd expect to see the backups late into the third quarter, if not earlier. This one's not even close. UTSA coming into Texas here. Number 2 ranked Texas. Look, they looked really good against Michigan. I don't think UTSA provides any sort of challenge for this Texas team. We're going to see the backups by halftime. We're going to get Arch Manning reps, Like I said, Texas would not have allowed a touchdown if it wasn't for that garbage time touchdown against Michigan. Like I said earlier, man, they should have had 7 more points in that game. 35 is a decent spread, but Texas still cover this. Who the fuck are UTSA? They're not good, right? They gave up 49 points to Texas State. This game's not even close. UTSA are very bad. Best team in the country here, Georgia, number 1 in the country. I think 24 points against a Kentucky team that just shit the sheets against South Carolina. Dude, you have to 24.5. Take that and run. That is free money. This Georgia team, right? They're ranked number 1 for a reason. They're gonna win, and they're gonna win big. Okay. South Carolina, they look shaky against ODU to start the season, and they turn it around and spank Kentucky. So if I'm Kentucky, look, chalk the season. Let's go play basketball, okay? Take Georgia, take the points. This easy pick. Moving on to Tennessee playing Kent State this weekend. I had Tennessee by 2 touchdowns last weekend, and while the game was going on, I live bet them for 38.5, and that still hit. So easy day for Tennessee. You're not going to see the starters for long in this one. Beware of garbage time points, but it's Kent State, man. And what's funny? Kent State, their schedule doesn't get easier because next week they got Penn State to look forward to. So, man, that's 0-4 to start the season for Kent State. You don't love to see it, but I'm going to be honest, 49.5 is a lot of points here. I'd be apprehensive. Maybe you let the first quarter play out. That comes down if Tennessee can't score and score early. But, yeah, I like them by a lot. I don't think Kent State puts up points. So how far away do they run away with the game is the question. I guess we'll wait to see on that one. Nebraska taking on the University of Northern Illinois. Not much to say here other than these two schools not even in the same caliber of football that they play. This is a handed victory for the Cornhuskers. I don't think they struggle here. I think they come away with another win. And this Cornhuskers team, you're looking at, 4-0 start to the season here. I'm surprised that the committee hasn't stepped in to rank them yet. It's coming eventually. As long as they don't lose any games, this UNI game's not going to be close. Take Nebraska at the 32.5 spot. That's an easy win. Moving on, talking about frauds. These guys, holy fuck. This is where we find out how bad Florida State actually are. If you lose this one, you have to fire people. People have to leave the organization. There's no way. The fact that the spread in this game is less than a touchdown should tell you all that you need to know about this one. Questions should be arised. Do you bench DJU? I think you do. I think you start somebody else. I think after you lost your first two games, your hopes of continuing any momentum for later on in the season are gone. We already know DJU's not our guy. Like just move on. Just find somebody else. And listen, this is a Memphis team that you should beat. And if you don't, I think a lot of people should lose their fucking jobs. Moving on here, we got West Virginia traveling to Pitt. This game's always close. Every single time these teams play, it's a toss-up, and I think it's another toss-up here. I think this game could go either way. I think after a rough start against Penn State at home, the Mountaineers go on the road, and do they get it done is the question. And you know, last week we saw them beat Albany, but that's not a fucking. They're not a real school. Okay, you get no bonus points from me for beating up on a University of Albany team, okay? Pitt, same thing. You played Kent State, okay? I can't give you any points for that. You squeaked out a close one against Cincinnati on the road, and, you know, is there a storyline there to be said? Not really, because I think this game is kind of more shades of that one. It's going to come down to the point and a half, I think, is a really close prediction for this game. Maybe you give Pitt the nod at home, but literally anything can happen. Anybody shows up on any given day. I don't want to touch this game. I think there's value in Pitt money line here, but other than that, I couldn't tell you what happens in this one, to be honest. Moving on, we got Texas A&M playing the Florida Gators. Listen, one of these two SEC schools is going to have 2 losses by the end of this weekend. And after that devastating loss against Miami to start the season for Florida, bouncing back against an FCS team, certainly necessary, but now you have another test. And if you lose this, your season's probably chalked. And as far as Texas A&M, you lose at home against Notre Dame, and that's tough. And you know, everybody expects you to beat McNeese, and you go out and you handle business. And then Notre Dame lose to NIU. So now the team that you lost to has a loss against NIU, and you look like you're even worse than you are. So yeah, if you're A&M and you lose this game here after just paying all that money for Jimbo Fisher to effectively just fire him, and then you start 1-2, man, that's not a good look. If your only win is McNeese on the season and you're 1-2, yeah, it's, I don't know, whichever one of these teams lose, you know, it's gonna be bad either way. But man, I wouldn't want to be either one of these two teams after Saturday. I think whichever team loses, you're in for it. Moving on to some other honorable mention games this weekend that I didn't feel like taking the time to actually go through and make a giant thing for. The Fighting Illini taking on Central Michigan at home. Look, they're coming off their win against Kansas. I foresaw them winning last week. Obviously, because I'm fucking stupid, I didn't put my money where my mouth was. I called it before the game. They get a win, and I think they get a win here at home against Central Michigan. I think that team's pretty bad. Washington State, this is anyone's game. Again, another in-state rivalry game that's not in rivalry week. I don't know what we're doing as directors or whatever the fuck that is, like athletic directors, scheduling these games. I don't know what the fuck you're doing. I'm going to give the nod to the Huskies at home here. I wouldn't be surprised to see an upset in this one, but I'm going to take the Huskies at home. App State travels out to Greenville to take on ECU and the Pirates. The Pirates actually being home dogs in this one. App State coming off a bad loss to Clemson. Look for this one to be close. I mean, this isn't great football by either one of these two teams. A lot of picks, turnovers, 3-and-outs. This is like, it's MACtion that's outside the MAC, and whoever wins this game, I don't know. You got App State on the road as a favorite, but ECU money line at home is a money factory too. So I wouldn't touch it. The game's out there. Take who you like. That one's going to go either way. Vandy on the road this week to Georgia State. This Vandy team actually showed the ACC what's up. They came out. They beat Virginia Tech week 1. They hung 55 on Alcorn State. Not impressive, but hey, look. I'm high on them until they have to play some actual competition. I don't think Georgia State's actual competition. Next week, they got to play Missouri. Look, I'd take them here plus the points. I mean, why not? They haven't showed me anything yet that says that they're bad. So let's ride them until we see otherwise. Next, we got even money on TCU at home. This team, look, they haven't looked the same since the disaster class in the national championship 2 years ago. They start 2-0 here, and if they get a win, they build some confidence. Look for them to make some noise, but they got a handful of ranked opponents on the schedule. I think they really need to build some confidence, and this UCF game at home is a good way to do that. But in order to get the ball rolling, you have to win them here. I like even money at home. Let's let it ride. Next up, Colorado, man. Colorado and Dion, talk of the town. Look, they're 7.5-point favorites in this one, and we know how this game went last year. It was close. I think this game's closer than 7.5. Colorado hasn't looked good this year. They're 1-1, but they just haven't looked good. And after last year, Colorado State might be out for revenge after their close loss. I think if the Buffaloes lose here, I think we just stop talking about them for the rest of the season. Let them kind of diminish out into obscurity. I really don't think that they're all that good. I mean, Shedur's good, Travis Hunter's good, plays both sides of the ball, but they don't have an offensive line. And if you can't stop the pass rush, you're not going to be able to have success. And Shedur's even mentioned that he would really like it if he had more time to make decisions and throw the ball. And I think if you actually gave him an offensive line, but they can't recruit the corn-fed white boys up there because everybody wants to ride the Dion train. So until you can get somebody to actually block for your son, I'm really low on Colorado and Dion. Then next, one of the newest members of the Pac-12 here. This news actually came this morning or late last night. San Diego State. There's a handful of them. I want to say Fresno State, San Diego State. I don't remember the rest, but look, they're taking a trip to Cal this week. Cal coming off a win. They cost me last week against Auburn. I'm not gonna lie. That Auburn game pissed me off. I'm not sure if Cal's good. They look good against Auburn, but I think Auburn just might be bad. They were able to move the ball effectively. Maybe they keep that momentum up. They're huge favorites at home against San Diego State. They probably just keep that momentum rolling. Unless something unforeseen happens, I would take them at home. The Hoosiers taking a trip out west this week for a Big Ten matchup. That's the first time, that somebody is going to have to, in the Big Ten, going to have to go all the way out to California for a Big Ten matchup. We'll see how this one goes. I haven't seen enough from either one of these two teams to make an assessment of the outcome here. I think this is a wait till halftime and then make a decision based on what you've seen so far in the game. I'm not going to put my money on this yet. This one could go either way, and I'm not ready to make a pick on it yet. The next game I want to talk about, I didn't put on here for a reason, and that is Auburn. Man, they're 28.5-point favorites against the New Mexico Lobos, a team that put up 39 against Arizona. Not much defense in that one, but what we saw from Auburn last week, man, we're in for more of the same. After losing last week in the fashion that they did, I didn't even take time to put them on this fucking graphic because that team just absolutely, they should be better than that, and they know they should be better than that, and that's a Cal team that, look, they're good. They moved the ball effectively. Auburn couldn't get anything done on offense. They held them to 21 points or something like that, but if you can't move the ball, you can't score points. I think New Mexico Lobos, they don't have a defense, okay? They don't, and we saw that against Arizona, and Auburn's going to be able to find success moving the football, but New Mexico might as well. They can score points. I don't know who's going to win this game because from what I saw from Auburn last week, I don't have any confidence in them. I don't like New Mexico to win this game, but I like Auburn to lose it, so take that as you will. That's going to come down that's going to come to the end of my week 3 rundown. If I missed any matchups that you want to see, leave a comment in the comment section below. I appreciate everybody tuning in, watching. I'm sorry that I couldn't have started this week 1. I was busy hammering bets, going to the casino, drinking with my boys. So we get a late start here to the season in week 3, but we'll see how this goes for the rest of the season. And yeah, if you want to see anything else like NFL, that kind of stuff, I make picks for UFC too. So just leave a comment down below what you want to see, matchups you want some insight on, and yeah. I appreciate everybody for tuning in and watching. Thank you, and let's have a great weekend. Let's make some fucking money.